You are listening to Read Me, a podcast related to everything about books and reading. Hi, it's your host Reem, and in today's episode, we are going to talk about The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Unfortunately, my scheduled host Romaisa could not make it, so it's just me and yeah, enjoy, I guess. But I will link her Instagram down below. Go check her out. I think by now, uh, her review for the book is going to be up. At least I'm assuming so because I'm filming this prior to that. And yeah, let's jump right into it. First of all, The Secret History was published in 1992. I just wanted to say that before I start any of this, because I'm trying to make a connection to that date for certain thing, which I'm going to talk about just in a bit later on. The first book, the premise of this book is that it tells the story of five college students who conspire to murder their sixth friend. So that's basically the secret history in a nutshell. In it, like Tart informs you, like that the murder had taken place immediately when the prologue opens up. So it serves to drive you in, like, into the story, and right now you know that the murder happened, you know who did it, and you know who's the victim. So it is like a great thing, a challenging more like it, I think, to see like how she is going to go about keeping you interested throughout her book. And the book is divided into almost two parts. Like the first one, where she describes the events leading up to the murder, and she laid down the characters' kind of motives, like for why they did it. But for the second part is like the consequences, and I have seen like people talk about how this book is kind of plays on the similarity between for him and for it and the Crime and Punishment, and I haven't read that, but I can see why. I can see why it is compared to that, because I can kind of spoil myself for Crime and Punishment by doing some reading, extra reading for this one, but I don't mind. Anyway, I want to bring up is the writing, the most prominent thing, and to me, I think the most beautiful thing about Tart, because prior to reading The Secret History, I read and adored The Goldfinch, and I kind of on this journey to read her books backwards, and I can say I love her writing because it doesn't seem like just a regular book to me, or just a murder book. I can see like some similarity between the great classics or kind of like a classical tragedies. I have read Macbeth back in the day, and also Euripides Medea, or at least part of Medea, not all of it. And I can see like that pretentious to be like that, really. And it's beautiful, and it's beautiful to take these characters who are like very young people who have all the making like of respectable human beings with great morals. They are just like coming of age, going to school, just reading these Greek classics and just being affected by them, but at the same time they are presented as these humans who are fundamentally flawed ones, and their thirst for knowledge and beauty kind of drives them to do horrendous things, unspeakable things, and it just makes you wonder, these are like youngsters who are not, to me, I shouldn't feel sorry for them or kind of sympathize with them. Here I'm kind of like foreshadowing to the murder, but I kinda do, or I like to find some pretext for them at least. I like feel bad saying that? Yes, and also no. I want to say if I put myself in their shoes, I'd probably like the circumstances would probably lead me to that. I will talk about this later of why I think that. But first of all, I have like these beautiful passages from the book. This first one is from page 41, which is about love. And she said like, and how can we lose this maddening self? Lose it entirely. Love. Yes, but as old Syphilis once heard Sophocles say, the least of us know that love is a cruel and terrible master. One loses oneself for the sake of the other, but in doing so becomes enslaved and miserable to the most capricious of all the gods, which is the god of war. This is not written, by the way. I just added that because if you read on in the book, you kind of find this answer. The next passage is really from page 45, and this one I think I like this one more than the first one. It is dangerous to ignore. It is dangerous to ignore the existence of the irrational. The more cultivated a person is, the more intelligent, the more repressed, then the more he needs some method of channeling the primitive impulses he's worked so hard to subdue. Otherwise, those powerful out forces will mass and strengthen until they are violent enough to break free, more violent for the delay, often strong enough to sweep the will away entirely. And these two passages kind of have like something or another to do with the murder, and later on something else that happened prior to the murder in the book, which I'm trying to like kind of turn around the bend of. I don't want to make this as a spoilery gush for this book. I want you to be able to listen to it without being spoiled, of course. And yes, I think these two passages are just grand examples of why I think her writing is very, very superb. She talks about love and beauty, crime, like the level of punishment, and when she goes on tangent and just speaking about Greek and the language and how it is vivid and beautiful, it made me want to learn it. It's not accessible for me to do so, but at some point, and at some point I wanted to, and which made me like go back and start taking French again, because I started it like 2 years ago and I stopped, and I felt like, why French? Maybe I felt like there is this similarity of beauty to it. I don't know how I make that connection. It looks weird right now when I voice it, but I think French is at least beautiful in that sense. I don't know. Probably. The next thing which I want to talk about is the characters. There are 6 of them, of course. The first one, which is the most important, is the kind of the narrator of the work, really. His name is Richard Peyton, and the entire story is told from his point of view. So Richard is presented as this like he's completely different from the other 5. He has no money, and he came from California to Hampton College to study Greek. Well, first of all, it wasn't Greek really. He just saw this group and just was drawn to them because they're the one who have money, have cars, trust funds, bank accounts, But Richard is completely different from them. He always wanted to kind of be associated with them, so he lied about or told little truths about where he came from and his family status, or not the entire truth really, and he left them to like fill in the rest of the story for themselves. And he is also a very unreliable narrator, in the sense that these people did not tell him everything. uh, they only picked and choose what to tell him, and thus leading to like an incomplete like a flaw of event. But also Richard is very smart. Sometimes he made the connection, and he was like just drawn into the whole thing by him being very like social climber, really. That's the best way I could describe him, because he wanted so bad to be part of this group, because the Julian, the professor, doesn't take a lot of students. He takes only 5 each time, and he really so badly wanted to be like part of this group, this elite group, really, because he was fascinated by them. And for Richard, sometimes his actions are unjustifiable at the time, because he basically could have prevented all of this, or just took himself out of this equation. Like he could have acted out and said, that's it, that's enough for me, I don't want to be like included in the whole thing. But another part of him, he kind of, yes, they kind of led him to be on the whole thing, but he liked that they let him in. He felt included when there was like this at this event when the 4 of them, before killing Bunny, like they decided to like they did something and decided to just dump Bunny and just leave him, because Bunny lived out of their pockets. He could not pay anything. He never paid for anything, and he made the other like dance on their feet, like paying for his excursions, his new clothes, books, fancy dinners, and drinks, and all that. And that kind of drove them nuts, in addition to what they done prior to killing him. And Richard, when he like I think he was set up by Henry at that point to find that he forgot his Greek book or lexicon, and he went to get it from Henry's apartment. And when he got there, he found his lexicon open with a slip of paper with this plain like tickets, kind of departed date, codes, and all that. And he made the connection. He gave a little calls, and he figured it out. He's smart, but here's the thing: that evidence was left on purpose. Like, that's my conviction. He was left. That thing was left on purpose by Henry for Richard to find. He knew that that desperation in Richard to be so included, so he threw him like this sliver of evidence. But he could have gone to tell Bunny that the others are just leaving for Argentina, but he didn't. And that thing gave him kind of like this euphoria, because I'm finally in. And that's when they told him the whole story of what Bunny had in them and why they are doing this whole thing. Because if you read this book, you find that Richard had no business like being there. He could have just gone to class and had nothing to do with them outside of the classroom, But he couldn't do that because they were just the six of them. Of course, like if you are in this really, really small group, you will eventually find yourself doing extra work with them and hanging out with them because you belong with them, really. And yeah, though Richard had many opportunities to make other friends, but he just didn't. He wanted these friends, the best way you can describe him is a wallflower, really. He's in the background, he is observing them, he doesn't have what they have, and he's just there. uh, were there like some development in his character? Not really. I don't think there was. Like, the way we see him at the beginning of the novel is the same way like we see him at the end. Just I don't think he changed that much. The old Richard is the same as like 27 years old himself, and that's my conviction. Another character which was like Henry, and he is the leader of the group, more like it, and he's the one like very uh, calm, quiet, doesn't talk much, really, really in love with with their professor Julian because he see him like a father figure. And yeah, but Henry is more like the mastermind of the whole thing because the kids wanted uh, to recreate this to be more like uh, invincible, or like to live for eternity, so they had to do this ritual, and Henry kinda led them to that point, you know. And even the teacher was on it, like not the murder, but them trying to create this ritual for like to be divine, invincible, godlike humans, more like it. I think there is also the twins, Camilla and Charles. They're very similar in looks, very like beautiful to an unnerving extent. To me, like, so at the first time, I did not like dis- distinguish between them. They were, as I said, too similar for me. Bunny is just this leech who lives on people, feeds on their money, time, nerve, and all that. I think my favorite one is definitely Francis. Francis is the gay character in the group, and he was like he was out to his friend, like everybody knew about that, but Bunny kind of held it over his head, and that's one of Francis' reasons really for being on this. Uh, as I said before, I'm really, really trying not to kind of spoil everything, or for that matter. So I'm trying to speak in codes, really. But as I said, Francis is definitely deserved better. Even at the end of it all, he he could have like had great life, but it was the 1990s, and gay people really didn't have any right to be themselves out in public, like just being their best selves. And I really, really feel for him. As for what I said before about why Richard kind of decided to include himself or be like part of the whole scheme, is when Bunny like started to like just walk in on his nerves. And on page 258 he said, by stages I grew to abhor him, ruthless as a gun dog. He picked up with rapid and unflagging instinct the traces of everything in the world I was most insecure about. all the things I was in most agony to hide. There were certain repetitive, sadistic games he would play with me. He liked to entice me into lies. "Gorgeous necktie," he'd say. "That's a Hermes, isn't it?" And then when I assented, reach quickly across the lunch table and expose my poor tie's humble lineage. Or in the middle of the conversation he would suddenly bring himself up short and say, "Richard, old man, why don't you keep any pictures of your folks around?" It was just the sort of detail he would seize upon. His own room was filled with an array of flawless family memorabilia, all of them perfect as a series of advertisements, etc., etc. So this is one of the things that drove Richard insane, and Bunny marveled at doing this. He did it to Richard. He did it to Francis when talking about his sexual preferences. He did it to Charles and Camilla. He accused them for sleeping with one another, for incest. And he marveled at saying so. And even for Henry, he. Though I don't want to say what he did to Henry because I don't want to spoil you, as I said. And here's the thing. I personally had friends in my life, like back in college or high school, who walked on my damn nerve, who were just like Bunny. And the minute I was finished with high school and college, I made sure to discontinue my relation with them. I changed my number. I could not, of course, change my place of living because I live with my parents, but every contact I had with them, I made sure to cut because those people really drove me nuts. At some point in college, I really it was a close link up with some girl, and I really don't like to stoop that low. I don't like fist fight is becoming of anyone really, but yeah. If I was like any one of these people, I would have probably just walked away, but they could not walk away simply because they were still in Saudi. Though none of them really needed the degree, except for Richard. All of them, as I said, had money lied around for them by family and friends and all the bits, but you know how these things work. Sometimes you kind of think about this is what they should have done. They shouldn't have killed him. Just walk away. If you are so bothered by him, just tell him we are not going to be friends anymore. But then they cannot because he has the upper hand now, and they have to cover to just kind of play his game. But every single time he would bring these little things, he would just dig his grave, just, yeah. And then I think, as I said in the beginning, though I feel really, really bad saying that he deserved it, but he kind of dug his own grave, as I was saying. At the beginning, he was in on the whole, being immortal, and he wanted to perform that blood ritual. But here he is when he felt really, and the thing why he Bunny played this game is when Richard was started to get really famous with the others, they invited him over, spent time with him, he felt excluded and being pushed away from the group, and kind of that what's led to him, starting this whole thing of telling them oh my god, you can't get rid of me, I know something or another about you too, or all that. And yeah, they did what they have to do. There is another thing which I really want to highlight also is the problem of diversity. I've seen a lot of people say this book isn't diverse. So, yes, by today's standards, this book is not diverse at all. As for, like, let's say 1992 standards, I think this book is because, of course, all of them are white, and white people, they got away with murder. But introducing a gay character in 1992 is, I would assume, like, is very controversial, and I think that's the level of diversity she introduces. Though she just did it, I think, unconsciously, really, uh, not like a plot device, or more like a plot device, really. Let's be real. It was a plot device to drive in some other characters, like, into the whole thing, and really it served no purpose. There was no change. As I said, it only brought the characters pain, but at the same time they could not change the fate or whatever, and just will presume what, just comply to what society would ask of those characters, really. And she could have done more, I guess. But here's the thing, I would assume that if she introduced a person of color, she would haven't been able, to do them justice. I would think if a, character of a person of color, it would have been Richard, I would assume, and for that it would be really, really bad for that character. It wouldn't be good. It wouldn't look good, really. So I'm glad she stuck to kind of one race, really. This is the one of the times that I like the author to stick to one race or their own race, instead of adding just for the sake of, like, performative diversity. No, we don't need that. And yes, she delivered. As I said, I really like this book. Not like better. I don't say it is better than the Goldfinch, but it is good. The Goldfinch still, like, on top of that. There is a lot of things I wanted to talk about also in this podcast, but unfortunately I can't. I have come to the end of my notes and the thoughts, or the inspoilery thoughts I wanted to add, really. And yes, if you wanna see me, like, talk about the ending or explain it in a spoilery way, I'm definitely going to do a video of that. Check it on my YouTube channel. You can find me on all social media: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, even. Come say hi, let's chat, and yeah, at the end I will link all of those in the description box. And thank you so much for listening for this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.